Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where last episode we had this vehicle that we launched in an unsimulated fashion, and it kind of exploded a little bit. I believe that the issue there is our angle of attack was too steep, and, well, we also had a bit of a tumble issue. Both of those, I think, would be solved if we just used MechJeb for this ascent. That'll give us a much shallower angle of attack, and that should completely solve the issue. Now, I don't think our Kerbals are in this right now. Correct. So we need these Kerbals to go in. They were, of course, in the last attempt and managed to safely land through some miracle. And let's just put this out on the pad and let's launch it. I'm going to use MechJeb to launch this. I already have put in a 120 kilometer, I think, in MechJeb, but for the apoapsis, we may want to bring that up to like 150. I'm just thinking about our low thrust to weight, right? As we ditch our SRBs and work just on the mainsail, we're going to have low thrust to weight, and that means more vertical speed is probably good. But does MechJeb actually operate like that? I don't know. That's going to be interesting. Now, you'll note that I've turned off the auto-deploy solar panels. I don't want these to deploy, and I've also turned off skipping circularization, but we could skip the circularization and just manually do that. That's not a big deal. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's throttle this guy right on up, and let's get at it. So off we go. Also, I'm going to be doing the staging because I don't necessarily trust that MechJeb will do this correctly. I think it probably would, but I just want to make sure that it's going to do this correctly. So the only thing we're using MechJeb here for is angle of attack control. That's literally the only thing that we want. I mean, we can even turn off auto-deploying antennas and auto-warping and only use this for angle of attack. And that seems reasonably fine for right now. So we can keep an eye on our apoapsis here. I was going to change it here, but then I realized we have KER on this, which I'm a little surprised that we have KER on this, actually. I'm not sure what part is giving us KER. Is that this guy? Or is it just the fact that we have a crew pilot here? I don't know. Well, our real question at this point is, are we going to have enough life support? I strongly suspect the answer to that is going to be yes. We also know that our touchdown is potentially going to be a little bit spicy as far as Duna goes. We'll see on that one. I'm assuming we don't have any ore in these kegs. Yeah, we should not have ore. So that looks good. As you can see, our angle of attack is a whole lot shallower than what we were attempting to do previously. And this should, in theory, fix the issues that we had. The issue that we had, I'm 95% certain, was due to the combination of an extreme amount of gimbal being used to try to stop the tumble that we had developed, which, to be fair, that tumble was catastrophic and would have caused that flight to be aborted no matter what. But the extreme amount of gimbal in an attempt to combat that tumble, combined with the very high amount of air pressure that was occurring in that moment, meant that it was just a very, very dynamic event, and I'm not necessarily surprised that it gave us significant issues, but I would be surprised if under more controlled circumstances, if it happened again. By the way, this is an unsimulated launch. I don't know if I said that, but this is not eligible to be reverted. So that's all well and good. We do need to get this liquid fuel burned out here, and that is slowly cruising its way down. And we're going to run out of solid fuel pretty quickly here. Of course, we're going to have to carry those SRBs a little longer than we'd like, but it is fine. I'm wondering, do we have fuel crossfeed enabled up here? Yes, we do. We'll disable that. I do not want fuel flowing down, so that looks good. So we're just punching our way up through the atmosphere here. We do see some heat bars appearing, but the SRBs are out of energy at this point. So we're just going to coast for a little bit. This is going to definitely drop our surface velocity, no doubt about that. I want to switch over to orbital anyway. And we're going to be ditching this as soon as we run out of liquid fuel and oxidizer here, which is now. Okay, is this MechJeb heading for the horizon here? Or is this a tumble? It's MechJeb doing this. We can tell because the roll is all the way over to here. And it's taking us this direction. So yeah, MechJeb was trying to move us further over. That's fine. So at this point, we see our orbital velocity is increasing, and I want to check our time to apoapsis, holding at 2 minutes. Okay. It is going down, actually. Definitely not 1 second per second, so that's going to buy us some time to get built up some orbital speed. But we don't have a lot of orbital speed at this moment. We might have to disengage this autopilot and take this over to a pro-grade burn. I don't know. I'm just looking at our relative speeds here. So we've got 800 meters per second in this. We need about 200 meters per second of orbital velocity, but this is not a 1-to-1 ratio because a lot of our speed right now is vertical, and we're trying to build up horizontal speed to orbital velocities before we run out of vertical speed. That's the idea here. So we need to build up a lot of horizontal speed, and we'll just see how that goes. We knew that this stage would be pretty low on the thrust to weight, so that's why we were targeting a 150-kilometer orbital altitude, but I don't think that MechJeb actually operates the way that I would like it to in that particular moment. That is to say, what I really wanted it to do by raising that orbital altitude, which I don't think that it's doing, is I wanted it to gather more vertical speed before it started its gravity turn. But we'll see. We've got 1.5 minutes to apoapsis at this point, and we can see we're a long ways away from orbital velocity. We have a lot of delta V in this. We're overbuilt on that front. So as long as we get to orbit, we're okay. But if we don't get to orbit, problems ensue. That said, our orbital velocity is increasing, but we need a lot more orbital velocity. Like, a lot more. At this time, I'm disengaging the autopilot, and I'm taking us to orbital prograde. I want to get a little bit more verticality going here, a little bit more vertical speed. So we're just parking on orbital prograde, and we're just going to sit here until perhaps we get an apoapsis of 150, or... Oh, look at that. We're good. Time to apoapsis is going up. Well, we're not necessarily good. We're not necessarily good yet, because we're going to have another drop in thrust to weight when we skip over to here, right? And I'm going to turn down the gimbal limit on this. It's a little over gimbaled. Yeah, something like that. So we need to build up as much time as we can here to the apoapsis, but we're just going to sit on prograde for the moment, and this is going to have to do. We may have to burn... I don't know. We really need to get a lot more horizontal speed here. It's going to be spicy. So at this point, I am convinced that this vehicle can get to orbit. I don't know that this is the trajectory to do it from, right? We're about to run out on our mainsail, so our thrust to weight is going to drop substantially. Okay. So I don't necessarily want this gimbaling quite that hard. We'll gimbal limit that down to about 10%. But at this point, time to apoapsis is at 1 minute 29 and dropping. It's about 2 seconds per second. And you can see that our orbital velocity is barely increasing. That said, we don't need that much additional speed at this point. I'm going to turn off the MechJeb ascent guidance. I'm going to physics warp this, and we'll see what ends up happening here. We're really close, but I think we just needed more verticality. So we need to absolutely start... Give me some gimbal limit on this. We absolutely need to start angling upwards a little bit here. I'm watching that time to apoapsis. I am not convinced at this point that we can get it to where we need it to be. This is burning at 45 degrees. Our thrust to weight here is very low. This is not intended for this stage to be achieving orbital velocity like this, right? But we're just trying to buy ourselves a little bit more time here at this point. Push that apoapsis up a bit higher. We should have done this earlier in the flight. That's very, very clear at this time. That said, look at that time to apoapsis. It's barely going down right now. It is going down a little bit, to be sure. But it's barely going down. Now, this is not efficient. This is not efficient in the slightest. So we're about 40 seconds to apoapsis, and man, we're just not getting orbital speed. I'm not surprised about this. Wait a sec. Look at that time to apoapsis. 38.5 and holding, going down to 38.4. Holding. Still holding. 38.5. We made it to orbit. Okay. That was barely. We barely made it to orbit. But we did make it to orbit. So that ascent trajectory could definitely be tuned. What that means is that we needed to burn straight up longer before we did the gravity turn. But that time to apoapsis increasing, our vertical speed currently going up, is a really, really, really big deal. So this is not an efficient way to get to orbit. That's for sure. I'm going to physics warp here, and we're going to burn here until our apoapsis reaches somewhere around 150. So that's going to be a fairly significant burn. No doubt about it. In fact, that's going to be a very significant amount of our fuel. But that's okay. We should have enough. So 136, 137, 138, 139... 140. Now you can see we're burning almost entirely vertically at this point. I'm going to start moving us over to prograde. And that's going to start increasing our horizontal speed, which we desperately need. So we've burnt a lot of fuel on counteracting gravity and buying ourselves more time there, but surprisingly, we managed to get to orbit. I'm very surprised by this. We're still going up in time to apoapsis, even over here at prograde. But we want to be at horizontal velocity up at this time. So we're at horizontal velocity up. We're going to keep burning here until such a time as our apoapsis height is at 150, which we're very, very close to. But man, that was spicy. We're now technically in orbit, but our periapsis is still in atmosphere. So this is not going to take us very much to get to orbital velocity once we get our apoapsis to 150. Which you can see the apoapsis is not going up by very much right now. It's mostly in the periapsis. We just shifted to orbital camera mode, and that's 150 at this time. So engine shut down, and we are going to just kind of coast over to the apoapsis here, and we'll get ourselves into the properly circularized orbit. Okay. I'm actually surprised that that worked, to be clear. I thought that we would have to take this back again and parachute it down, which would be obnoxious, and that we would have to launch it again in a different trajectory. But I was wrong. And I'm very happy that I was wrong, because that would be a huge waste of everyone's time. So we managed to get this to orbit just barely. We're extending out these solar panels for now. That's all the solar panel that we need for the moment. But life support is, of course, a bit of a concern, although we probably have enough food to last us the whole way. Which means that we can run our carbon scrubber and we can run our water filter, in theory. So we've got a minute and a half to do this turn. And then we're going to need to check timings, right? I'm not sure. We have another vehicle on the way out to Duna right now. And I'm not sure exactly where that vehicle is in its warping pattern. But we have determined that our Kerbals on Duna are going to go into hibernation no matter how we slice it. So we're going to need to absolutely... We're going to need to change that around, right? We're going to need to bring these guys in, rehydrate them, and get ourselves a proper source of long-term food. So we've got about 20 seconds until this burn. Now about 10, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. I also cut our gimbaling down because it was wiggling around a little bit too much there. So this is going to take us about 100 meters per second to get our way into orbit here, and that's wonderful. I'm still surprised that this got us to orbit. But it certainly did. Barely. Absolutely. Very, very barely. But we managed to get there in the end. And we've got enough DV, so that's absolutely fine. Our thrust to weight, of course, is extremely low. And that probably means that our best bet to get out of here is going to be multiple burns, because our burns are going to be very long to actually get us out. So we might have to take multiple passes on the exit, which is going to be real interesting for sure. Our thrust to weight is significantly low, but it will improve. Okay, so we have about 1 meter per second left here. This is fine. I don't really mind. Okay, this is absolutely good enough. So we'll just call that good, and now we can start looking at what this would be, right? So if we added a maneuver about here, how long of a burn time is this? Well, it is significant. So this is more burn than we need, obviously, unless we just happen to be in a good transfer window. No, we don't. So this is way more burn than we need at this moment. We need to bring this right on back. And we'll just do this about here. Now, this is our storage module here, and I'm not sure when its burn time is, but we need to align to this node, and as you can see, this is a 6 minute and 38 second burn. I think that's probably a bit more than what we should do. So maybe we should split this into 2 half burns. So this would be like 440 and then 440 again at the periapsis on the next go round. That's what I'm thinking right now. So let's just go ahead and physics warp as we turn. We're not going to run out of electric charge anytime soon with the amount of batteries we've got on this thing, so that's nice. And of course, we've got 24 minutes to make this turn. That is no problem whatsoever. We do have a lot of carbon dioxide, of course, and we're going to want to eventually get this going. That said, I think we sized this that we needed to run a greenhouse in order to be positive on our oxygen. But we do have a lot of oxygen in storage. So I don't know how long of oxygen we have in storage. There is, I think, on the map view. No, I forget where the button is. Yeah, right. No, not here. There's a button here somewhere where we can look at our current amount of life support in certain locations. I forget where, though. So that's very helpful. We're going to warp on forward, and yeah, this is going to be about 440 meters per second. We're just going to do this in 2 passes. It'll be much more efficient to do this than to do a burn starting here and ending here, right? So that'll absolutely be a useful thing to do. Okay, so we've currently got about 1 minute. Let's get our angling correct, or correct-ish. Okay, so we're about 20 seconds away from this. 15, 10, 5, and 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay, so this is going to be a 3.5 minute burn. We can definitely physics warp that burn. We're plenty rigid for this, so no issue there. And that looks fantastic for now. Of course, once we're done with this burn, we're going to need to start up another burn, our second half of this. It's going to be about another 440 meters per second, thereabouts. So that'll be fine. We'll just do that on the next pass. So that's 2 minutes of burn remaining at this point. Well, 1 minute 40 now. So that's absolutely fine. About 200 meters per second to go. We are nearly halfway through this burn, and as you can see, we're definitely going to be losing efficiency here as we get further and further away from this maneuver node. Burning right at the maneuver node is the ideal time to do so, but our thrust to weight is just too low. So we'll just do this in 2 passes. It'll be fine. We've got about 20 seconds left in this burn. So let's take this out of physics warp. 30 seconds left. I say seconds. That was meters per second. 8 seconds. 7, 6, 5, 4. And if we overshoot this a little bit, that's okay. 2, 1, and yeah, we overshot a little bit, but that's absolutely fine. Not a problem. So at the periapsis, again, we're going to add a maneuver here, and this is going to be another 440 meters per second, or maybe a little bit more than that. Yeah, it's going to be a little more than that. Maybe like 450 meters per second. Yeah, that'll do the trick. So with it at 450 meters per second, that'll get us into escape velocity. That looks great. Let's go ahead and align to the node. We're currently going the wrong direction, so I'm going to freeze our physics just to get us turning a little faster. Not like we have an issue with it, right? This is going to be a 1 hour, 24-minute orbit. So it's not like we're going to have a difficult time getting over there, but this will just allow us to warp faster. So that looks good. We are nowhere near the burn time as we finish this turn. And we'll just warp right on around. After we get the turn done, anyway. Any moment now. Okay, this is close enough. So we'll warp on over. Oh, this drifted on us quite a bit. I'm going to pull us out of the warp a little earlier, and we're just going to turn here. I don't want to try to make all of this turn in the 1 minute before the burn timing, so we've still got about 10 minutes here, so let's just get oriented a little bit better. And I think we would have made it in that 1 minute burn timing, but this is just a little bit safer here. And after the issues we've had with this thing thus far, safer is better. Okay, let's warp on forward. Yeah, that's not moving too much on us now. So that looks good. We're now 1 minute away from the burn, and we can just warp forward a little bit. 50 seconds, 40, 30, 20, 10, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay, so this is the final burn here, and this will, of course, get us out of the Kerbal system. So next, we're going to need to check our maneuver nodes, because we're going to have 2 vehicles going at once. So that's definitely something that we're going to have to juggle a little bit. But for now, of course, we just want to get through this burn as quickly as we can. So we'll just push our apoapsis right on up, and that will be magnificent. It is about time to put a cut in here, so I think I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll just say I'll run this burn to completion, and next episode, we'll just check in on where we need to be for our maneuver node. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Dark Horse, Ethan Feldman, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, Rornaz, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.